The Highgate Vampire, a modern-day vampire panic in London. In the late 1960s, London was a city of contrasts, where ancient history met modern life in a chaotic blend of culture and tradition. Amid this bustling metropolis lay Highgate Cemetery, an iconic Victorian burial ground that had fallen into disrepair. The cemetery, with its overgrown foliage and crumbling tombstones, exuded an eerie charm that attracted local youths and paranormal enthusiasts alike. It was here, among the shadows of Highgate's Gothic architecture, that one of London's most chilling legends would be born, the Highgate Vampire. The story began in 1969, when reports of a mysterious figure lurking in the cemetery at night began to surface. Witnesses described seeing a tall, dark figure with hypnotic, glowing eyes that seemed to peer into their very souls. Some claimed it was a ghost, while others whispered of something far more sinister, a vampire. The media quickly picked up on these stories, and the legend of the Highgate Vampire began to spread like wildfire. Two figures would come to dominate the narrative: David Farrant and Sean Manchester, both self-proclaimed vampire hunters. Farrant, a member of the British Occult Society, claimed to have seen the entity himself and even conducted nocturnal vigils in the cemetery to capture photographic evidence. Manchester, on the other hand, declared that the creature was a genuine vampire and vowed to exterminate it. The rivalry between these two men added a human element to the legend, fueling public interest and media coverage. On Friday the 13th of March 1970, the legend reached its peak. Manchester announced that he would conduct an exorcism at Highgate Cemetery, inviting the public to witness the event. Hundreds of people, armed with makeshift stakes, garlic, and crucifixes, descended upon the cemetery. The police struggled to control the crowd, and the event became a media spectacle. Although no vampire was found that night, the frenzy only served to cement the legend in the public's imagination. Yet, the legend of the Highgate Vampire was more than just a tale of supernatural terror. It was a reflection of the societal anxieties of the time. The 1960s were a period of great change in Britain, marked by cultural upheaval and a questioning of traditional values. The vampire, an age-old symbol of fear and otherness, resonated deeply with a public grappling with the uncertainties of the modern world. Highgate Cemetery, with its decaying grandeur, served as the perfect backdrop for these anxieties to manifest. The reports continued, and the legend grew. People claimed to find dead animals with their throats slit and bodies drained of blood, further fueling the vampire hysteria. It wasn't long before the cemetery became a hotspot for those fascinated by the macabre. Ghost hunters, thrill seekers, and even satanic cults were drawn to Highgate, each adding their own layer to the ever-growing mythos. As the 1970s progressed, the legend of the Highgate Vampire showed no signs of waning. The cemetery's nocturnal visitors increased, driven by both curiosity and fear. Among them were David Farrant and Sean Manchester, whose rivalry had turned into a public spectacle. Each claimed to have the methods and knowledge to defeat the vampire, and their confrontations only added to the eerie atmosphere surrounding Highgate. Farrant conducted numerous vigils and rituals in the cemetery, often documenting his findings and experiences. One of his most famous encounters was with a shadowy figure that seemed to vanish into thin air as he approached. He captured photographs of what he believed were supernatural entities and published them, hoping to provide proof of the vampire's existence. Farrant's dedication to the hunt earned him a loyal following, but also skepticism and criticism from those who doubted his claims. Sean Manchester, on the other hand, took a more dramatic approach. He declared that the Highgate Vampire was an undead aristocrat who had been brought to England in a coffin by followers of black magic. According to Manchester, this vampire had been awakened by the desecration of graves and occult practices in the cemetery. He claimed to have identified the vampire's resting place in a large, sinister tomb within Highgate's confines. In a highly publicized event, Manchester led a group of followers into the cemetery one night to confront the vampire. They descended into the tomb he had identified, finding it cold and filled with an overpowering stench. Inside, they claimed to have discovered a coffin containing a lifelike corpse. Manchester described how they drove a stake through the body's heart, performing an exorcism to banish the evil spirit. This dramatic account was widely reported in the media, though skeptics quickly dismissed it as a hoax or a publicity stunt. Despite these high-profile hunts, the sightings and strange occurrences continued. Visitors reported seeing ghostly apparitions, hearing disembodied voices, and feeling sudden drops in temperature. Some claimed that the vampire could mesmerize its victims, compelling them to do its bidding. These tales only heightened the fear and fascination surrounding Highgate, making it a notorious location for paranormal activity. The cemetery's atmosphere, already steeped in Victorian morbidity, became even more foreboding. The overgrown paths and leaning tombstones seemed to close in on visitors, creating a sense of impending doom. Nighttime explorations were particularly harrowing, with every rustle of leaves and snap of a twig sending shivers down the spine. Those brave enough to venture into the cemetery after dark often reported a feeling of being watched, as if unseen eyes followed their every move. The media played a significant role in perpetuating the legend. Newspapers, television programs, and radio shows all covered the Highgate Vampire extensively, each adding their own sensationalist spin. This constant coverage ensured that the story remained in the public consciousness, turning Highgate Cemetery into a symbol of supernatural terror. As the years went by, the fervor surrounding the Highgate Vampire gradually subsided, but the legend never truly disappeared. The cemetery remained a site of interest for paranormal investigators, thrill seekers, and tourists fascinated by its macabre history. Farrant and Manchester continued their rivalry for decades, each maintaining their version of the events and the creature they had hunted. Highgate Cemetery itself underwent restoration efforts in the 1980s and 1990s, transforming it from a decaying relic into a historical site open to the public. Despite the improvements, the eerie atmosphere persisted, and stories of ghostly sightings and unexplained phenomena continued to emerge. The legend of the Highgate Vampire had become an indelible part of the cemetery's identity, forever entwined with its Victorian tombs and shadowy paths. In retrospect, the Highgate Vampire saga can be seen as a convergence of folklore, media sensationalism, and societal anxiety. The figure of the vampire, steeped in centuries of myth and fear, provided a perfect outlet for the public's fascination with the supernatural. The involvement of Farrant and Manchester, with their dramatic hunts and public confrontations, added a human element that captured imaginations and kept the story alive. The events at Highgate also highlight the power of legend and belief. Whether or not a vampire truly stalked the cemetery is almost beside the point. The sightings, the hunts, and the media frenzy all contributed to a narrative that resonated deeply with people's fears and curiosities. Highgate Cemetery became a canvas upon which these fears were projected, creating a story that transcended its origins to become a modern myth. Today, visitors to Highgate Cemetery can take guided tours that explore its history and the famous individuals buried there. The guides often touch on the vampire legend, recounting the dramatic events of the 1970s with a mix of skepticism and intrigue. For many, the cemetery is a place of reflection on mortality and history, but for others, it remains a site of supernatural wonder and fear. As the sun sets and shadows lengthen, one can't help but feel the lingering presence of the Highgate Vampire. The rustling leaves, the ancient tombs, and the silence of the night all combine to create an atmosphere of mystery and dread. The legend endures, inviting new generations to ponder the unknown and question what might lurk in the darkness. In the end, the Highgate Vampire is more than just a ghost story. It is a testament to the enduring power of folklore and the human imagination. It reminds us that even in an age of science and reason, there are places where the supernatural feels tantalizingly close, and where the line between reality and myth blurs into shadow. So, the next time you find yourself walking past a dark cemetery, remember the story of the Highgate Vampire and wonder what might be watching you from the gloom.